The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher. All right, welcome to this episode of Disrupt Education. I got a special guest with us on the line today, Chris Kubbernus. How are you, Chris?
I'm great, man. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much. Where are you at right now, man?
Right now, I'm in Frankfurt, Germany.
Oh, man, nice.
I'm here for the next day, just meeting with a client. So,
excellent. Tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Sure. I mean, I'm a classic sort of marketing geek. I love marketing since I was like 12 years old. I was super interested in it. I was critiquing ads on the television and print ads, and my parents were like, "This is a really weird kid," but anyway, we'll deal with this. So they gave me a book on, top 100 jobs or top 1,000 jobs in advertising or whatever, and I read that and I became super interested in that and basically, I've been pursuing a career in marketing and advertising since then. And right now, for the last almost 3 years, I've been the CEO of my own agency. So I run a digital agency based in Copenhagen. I'm Canadian, but I moved to Copenhagen about 10 years ago and then started the agency 3 years ago, and we've grown to now we're 12 people. So we're growing fast. We get some great clients. We do a lot of social media content, a lot of campaigns on social media, stuff like that. So that's what's going good. And I'm 36 years old. I got 2 kids, a beautiful wife, the whole family thing. So balancing, entrepreneurship and having a family is sort of my shtick.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm picking up on the Canadian. So my family comes from Toronto. So
okay,
that's,
nice.
So I'm picking up on the dialect there.
I tried to lose it, man, but I can't. It seems to hold on to me.
Tell me a little bit about your educational path. It sounds like you moved to Copenhagen, in your 20s.
Yeah.
What was your education like, both systemically and obviously with all the different your actually just your life in general? What does that look like? What does that path look like?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a pretty decent student. I would say that I took to education pretty easily. I know that's not the case for everybody. I was taught at an early age, actually, that education was important and to do that, despite being in a family that was fairly, not uneducated, but not like university level. And so that was kind of interesting. And then, of course, when I first learned on what I wanted to do when I wanted to be in marketing, I did a mix of both practical and education. So in school, I had the options. In high school, I had the options of taking classes in media and classes in computer science and classes in art and those sort of, traditional sort of things, but leading in that sort of path of marketing and sort of maybe business in some ways. And then I did an internship at an ad agency, so that was also the practical side. And then, my own self-education, I was very interested, of course, in drawing, and then I would get into Photoshop, Quark Express, actually, even before we had Photoshop, stuff like that, like desktop publishing early on. And then the web hit, so I, quickly jumped into teaching myself how to code and do website stuff. So I think it was a good mix of sort of theory and practical stuff. Once I really knew what I wanted to do, it was easy because I had just a passion for it, and sort of I learned by doing in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
My parents, really encouraged me to go to university. We actually spent a lot of time figuring out where should I go. I applied to a number of universities. I actually even applied to go to Florida State University, to go down there and go down there and go to school in Florida, which I never actually did. But so I went to university. I also worked, during my school years in university, still doing practical stuff. I actually had my own small business, building websites. So I think I had a very, I had a sense that theory wasn't enough, that I actually had to do what I was talking about or learning. So I did both of those things, and I got a bachelor's degree in communications from University of Calgary. So I have higher education, and then that's almost it. I mean, I took a couple of certifications and certifications in integrated branding and minor educations like that are just like, 3 months, 6 months, night classes. So, and then actually coming to Denmark, I've spent 4 years working at a venture capital firm when I finished school, but then coming to Denmark after that, it was kind of funny. When I got here, they were like, "You only have a bachelor's degree? What's wrong with you?" So I learned actually very quickly that education is pretty important in Europe. Denmark, especially because education is free or paid through taxes, essentially. So most people go to the master's degree level. So it's a highly educated society. And so that's also been a bit interesting that, a number of employers had a problem with my level. So that's basically been my educational journey, other than, of course I learn every day. I don't stop. I mean, I'm a sponge, basically. Just a giant pink purple sponge.
It sounds like you do you still do, obviously, but a lot of authentic work within your theory. And, how did that come into play? How did you know, okay, the practical side is just as important as theory? Because I don't think a lot of people in the United States get that.
I think it was just what I liked. It wasn't like a light bulb went off and said, okay, I have to do this in order to survive, or in order to, it was literally like, I'm lucky in a sense that I knew what I wanted at an early age. Not everybody has that sort of epiphany or has that sort of thing in them. And so I was very lucky to know what I wanted. And then it wasn't all about learning theory. For me, it was actually the practical application. Like, that's what I like to do. I like to get my hands dirty. Similar to, maybe a carpenter, that doesn't build anything. That doesn't make any sense. Carpenter needs to build stuff. Right. So, I mean, you know what I mean? So for me, it wasn't like, it was just instinct or just what I liked doing. I liked producing advertising. I liked making websites. I liked learning about social media. Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
My picture went off there.
So it's interesting. In Europe, you mentioned university is paid for, through taxes, and obviously in the United States,
in Denmark it is.
Denmark, okay. So, and obviously in the United States it's not, and it is getting extremely expensive here. So that's kind of what my research is working on is how would you what is your utopia of education? What is something that either maybe you would change or that you would like to see in education, and it could be like in our high school system, our K through 12 system, or at the collegiate level. Is there something that you would change at that?
Well, I think that, okay. Oh, sorry, my thing keeps going off here.
No worries.
Here's the issue. Okay, so I've had the benefits of being in or experiencing several different countries. So this is or at least a few different countries, which is nice. So, for example, I know what the U.S. system is like because I was actually applying to go and do school there, and got a sense of that, and did the whole tour and did the whole let's work out the money sort of issue and stuff like that. And I've also been to university in Canada, and I've also seen the education system in Denmark. So I have an experience from all sort of those sort of three things. And I would say that what I think is interesting about the Canadian system compared to the U.S. system is that it's way cheaper. It's way cheaper in Canada. And I think there's still a fee, there's still a price tag on it. And I think that can maybe force you to do it differently. Like it'll at least make you think about, what am I paying for and what am I getting out of this and what do I hope to achieve from it? In Denmark, because it's free, some people tend to not take it as serious as they should. So that's maybe not the best angle either. Although, because there's not a huge amount of industry, it's more blue collar or white collar work in Denmark. You know, it makes sense that you need an educated population, like you, and that sort of also seems to be from a country competitive standpoint, that you actually have a really highly educated workforce. So Denmark made a very smart decision as industries, you know, moved to China, India, places like that. They rightfully saw that, holy crap, we're going to end up here with a bunch of blue collar citizens, like educated wise, but no jobs for them.
Right.
So they sort of, the higher education system that they have there makes sense because it's a lot of white collar jobs. So that sort of makes sense. And I think one of the things that the U.S. sort of didn't see is that. They didn't see that, right? So education costs went through the roof and blue collar jobs went down. And it's like, there's this gap now that's really hard to get through. So I think like the ideal system is actually Canada in some ways, because you still pay for it. There's still like a small amount of money. It's not crazy. I mean, I think I got out of school with maybe $15,000 in debt. That's about it, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
That's pretty cheap.
For
that's
us
pretty
anyway,
cheap
in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, rather than $200,000 or $300,000 or whatever crazy amount it is.
Right.
Keep in mind, I have a bachelor's degree, right? So it's not the highest level of education, but so I think the ideal system is that, and I think that I also would say that when I look at the university curriculum, at least from my side, there was so much crap in there that was like not applicable, right? So you have a lot of curriculums that need changing, that need more practical application of the thing that you're learning. And that's why I think you're finding those people with more hands-on training that are doing their internships or doing their summer works or doing something on the side where they're actually learning the practical things. So I would say, universities need to work out their curriculum and say, okay, we need to build well-rounded students. Do they need, and what's going to be most beneficial for their life and for their jobs? Like I took classes in, like I had to take, when I remember when in university, they made me take a region of the world as part of my studies. So I had to not a minor, but I had to have a region. So I took like 3 or 4 classes in Latin America and just learning about the Latin American region. And I'm like, that has no application for me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it doesn't, like, why would I waste, why would I waste, 3 or 4, well, more probably like 5 to 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
For 3 years on those courses. Like, it makes no sense to me now that I look back on it. And so I think that there's a lot, like, the old system is changing. You can see that. You can see people are super upset about education these days. It's a hot button issue, and most people are like, the system sucks. And I agree. The system is fundamentally broken. Even in Canada, even in Denmark, there's some issues of curriculum that are just like, what? Why are we learning this? This makes no sense. So I think, I don't know what the answer is, other than we need a hard look at how are we going to educate the next generations, and does what we're doing now make sense?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's really well put. I like the way that, you kind of take the Danish system. It would be called Danish, right? I want to get that right. And then the American system, and then you kind of see the best of both worlds in your country, your native country of Canada. That's an interesting thing. So just a couple of things for you. Where can people find you online, Chris? What kind of places can people find you? Because you're all over the place, my man.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little stressed then. I mean, you can find me everywhere. I mean, go find me on YouTube at /Chris Kubby, Twitter /Chris Kubby, Instagram /Chris Kubby. Find me anywhere. I'd love to know if anybody who's listening or seeing this, has heard it. Let me know. DM me, message me, say, hey, I saw you on Disrupt Education. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree with me. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Right. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time so much, man.
Thank you. I really appreciate this.
Watching you grow across Europe, have big moves for your company there. One last question.
Sure.
If you had a new hire, somebody coming in, what do you look for in somebody when they walk in? So you have an opening, you have a young person who's maybe coming out of university. What is it? What's one or two big things that you look for that my audience can kind of say, oh yeah, I probably need those skills?
The skills that I look for mostly are, it depends on the job, obviously, right?
Right.
But I mean, I do very much look at practical application of stuff. So for example, we just, if we're looking for a video person, they need to have produced video stuff. Mm-hmm. If we're looking at a copywriter, I need to see their writing, right? And we'll test them on that. If I'm looking for a digital marketing consultant, I'm actually going to see like, hey, have you run campaigns? Have you done anything? So I look at cases, and I try to go through what was their thought process to get to where they got to and their conclusions, and that's basically what I would see. I would see like, what is their process? Because I think a person's process shows how they've thought about it and how they work with it, and what is their, are they just on sort of autopilot, as in like, I learned this in school and this is the way we do it? Mm-hmm. Or are they actually unpacking it in a way that makes sense to them, and sort of they've actually thought critically about it? I find like there's not a lot of critical thinking that's happening, right? Like, why are you doing it this way, or why is it? And that's the one of the top things is like, can they think critically? And then the other skill is will they fit in the team, right? Mm-hmm. Will they add some energy to the team? Will they be extroverted enough? Not that we don't hire introverts, but mm-hmm. will they get along? Because that's, having those personal skills, being able to talk to clients, talk to their peers, talk to people, explain what they're doing. I think that one of the really interesting skills that I see in people, that I sort of try to get out of people, is do they teach? Can they teach something? Mm-hmm. Which is like, why that skill? But that skill is super interesting when you want to grow a company, or you want to grow skills within a company. If somebody can teach you why they've done it a certain way, mm-hmm. or teach you anything, it's a very good way of understanding their understanding. Mm-hmm. So understanding their understanding of what they're doing.
Right.
So I always look at, can they teach something?
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. We're going to share that with our viewers. Thank you so much, Chris, for being here on Disrupt Education.
Man. Thank you.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time on Disrupt Education. Keep your eye on this guy. He's out there. He's making moves across Europe and possibly back here in the United States. So we'll see.